Hi and welcome to a special episode of Knit All the Things. Today we are going to talk all about gift knits. There are 20 patterns that I can't wait to share with you in 4 categories. We have small scarves, hats, mitts, and cowls. I believe that these patterns will work so well for many members of your family and friends, and they come in a lot of different sizes and a lot of different constructions just to keep it interesting for you. So let's get started. First off, we have the Sophie pattern by PetiteKnit. Now before you go, the reason I threw this in, it has been made over and over and over. And there's a reason for that. This is a very versatile pattern. It's very quick, very easy. You can make it as long or as short as you like. It does come in 2 sizes and the gauge is 22 stitches and it's knit on a US 4 or a 3.5 millimeter needle. I really think that these are such sweet scarves. They're very quick and easy to make, and you can not only wear them obviously around your neck as a little scarf, but you could tie them in your hair, you can tie them on a bag, and they're just a very sweet, easy, quick knit. And of course you can throw a lot of love into them, and I'm sure whoever receives it will love it. Next up, we have the Party Line scarf. This is a pattern by Kaci and she also has a podcast, Young Folk Knits, and I think this one is so sweet. So the gauge on this pattern is 22 stitches, and I really love the little eyelets in this one. It keeps it very sweet. I think it gives it just a nice little oomph without, taking away from the warmth of the scarf. You obviously don't want it to be too holey or you're not going to enjoy the warmth of the scarf. But again, because it has the eyelets and depending on the yarn that you use, this could be used in a warmer climate or somewhere that doesn't get so cold. So I just think it's really sweet. This pattern only takes 150 yards of sport weight yarn. You could substitute in fingering or DK depending on how you want the fabric to be for your scarf. And I just think it is so wearable. Again, you could wear it in many different ways. Next up, we have the Summer Camp Kerchief. This is a pattern by Ashley Adams, and she is also known as Designed by So-and-So. She also has a podcast, so check hers out. The gauge on this one is 17 stitches, and I just think it is so cute. This little tiny kerchief is just adorable. And I love that you can do a few different versions of this one, depending on how you put in eyelets and just the little details you can adjust and make it kind of all your own. And I really think that you could make it bigger or smaller. It does come in just one size, but again, you can, depending on what yarn you use and how you decide to finish it, you could make it as big or as small as you wanted. And I think that's great. Next up, we have another shawl by Hiromi Otsuru, and she uses fingering weight yarn, but I believe there's several yarns held together, and it's a really interesting construction. So instead of starting at the top of the shawl and then knitting outward, you actually start from the bottom edge. You make this beautiful braid of yarn using a crochet hook, and then you pick up and you knit the shawl from there. And so it is a different construction. I really think that it is just so fun and you could do a lot. You could also use quite a bit of your stash if you wanted, or scraps, and just make it such a unique shawl. I absolutely love it. Next up, we have the Storm Shawl. This is a pattern by locatelli, and the gauge is 15.5 stitches, so it's a large gauge, and it is using only 1 fingering weight skein. You can, again, make this one as big or as small as you'd like. I've made this one a few times, and I just absolutely love this pattern. It's super easy. Has moments of interest and then moments of like garter stitch, so you do have breaks of paying attention to not paying attention. It's a beautiful crescent shape shawl and just a lot of fun to make. I also really love using just that 1 skein and seeing how big of a shawl it kind of makes. It's a good size, so I highly recommend this pattern. Next up are the hats category. So I threw in my very favorite hat of all time. I love making this hat. I've probably made like 5 or 6 of them. It's called the Morning Walk Hat. This is a pattern by Patterson. It is only available on Ravelry, but I love it. So it is a DK weight pattern. You use 2 strands of fingering weight yarn, or I guess DK worsted weight, 2 strands of fingering weight yarn, and I highly actually recommend using the yarn that is recommended, which is Woolfolk Tend and Snow. It is so soft. It is incredibly soft yarn. And so this is just such a luxurious hat. I absolutely can't say enough about it. I wear mine all the time. It is my go-to hat that I personally wear a lot. It is a very simple style 1x1 rib pattern, and it really can be worn slouchy or tighter to the head, just depending on how long you knit it. And it is really just perfect. I will say this is mostly an adult pattern, maybe teen to adult. It does only come in one size, I believe. And so you're not gonna have a lot of size range on this one. But again, if there's an adult in your life or a teen in your life, this would be a perfect pattern. Next up, we have the Hipster hat. This is a pattern by PetiteKnit. This is kind of a classic 2x2 rib pattern, and it comes from a baby, child, woman, and man size is how it's determined. So 4 sizes. The gauge is 29 stitches, and this uses approximately 100 grams of yarn with 2 strands held together. So you could substitute in a worsted weight or, hold 2 fingering double. It is really, really a fun pattern to knit. I have knit a bunch of these as well, which is part of the reason I included this pattern. It really knits up beautifully. I love the shape of the crown and just the boldness of the 2x2 rib stitch. I always think it looks so good, so elegant and clean. So it is one of my favorite patterns. Next up is the Antler Toque. This is a pattern by tincanknits. You can get this couple of different ways. They have an app also available on their website and Ravelry. And this one comes again in a baby, child, small adult, and large adult. And it really has, a small, medium, and large adult, I think. So there's a lot of options for sizing, which I really appreciate. So you can make them for everyone in your family and make sure that they fit. It also has such a simple, beautiful cable pattern that really is eye-catching. And I think cables are fun because they make it look so much more impressive when it's not that hard of a stitch to learn. So I think it's really great. The other really cool thing is they have tutorials. So if you are not too familiar with cables, this is a great pattern because they do offer tutorials. Again, you can do it on their app, which makes it even more simple because you can just select the size you're making and it only shows you the number of stitches and stuff for only that size, instead of looking at a pattern where you have to kind of remember which pattern you're making or which size you're making. So that always makes it super easy. Next up, I have the Pixel Pop hat. This is a pattern by Jodi Brown from the Grocery Girls, and I love this one. I think it is so happy. It's such a happy, beautiful mosaic knit. It really, you could go in so many colors. You could change up the colors each stripe. You could do a lot of things with this one, and it's just such a fun hat. I also think it looks amazing with the pom-pom on it. So it really is just an all-around amazing hat. It does come in baby, child, small, medium, and large adult. So again, you can make this hat for everyone in your family, and it's just fun. I think that anytime you do a stripe or a mosaic or any sort of color work like this, it really makes the pattern go by quickly, and it's so enjoyable to knit. And I think that it's just beautiful. The crown on this one also is amazing. I really love the decreases, and it looks gorgeous. Next up, we have the Arctic Spring hat. This is a pattern by thepetiteknitter, and I love this one. It is a fingering and lace weight held together, and the gauge is 28 stitches. And it comes in 5 sizes. So I'm guessing baby, child, teen, and 2 adult sizes. I really think this one's fun. I love the beautiful color work here, and it's just, you could really use so many different colors and really make it your own. Right now, as the pattern is written, is 1 main color and 2 contrasting colors, but again, you can switch that up and really make it all your own and decide how many colors you want to use in it, or a few colors. I just think it's such a fun pattern. I really, really like this one. Okay, next up we have the mitts category. So mitts, mittens, fingerless gloves, those types of things. First off, we have the Tinsel mitts. This is a pattern by Andrea and Mowry. I have made this one several times. It really is a very simple pattern. It comes in 5 sizes, so toddler, child, adult, small, adult, medium, and large. And I really, really find this such a fun pattern. It comes in 3 different styles. You can do a fingerless glove. You can do a fingerless glove with like the little flap mitten to keep your hands warm, or you can make just the mitten itself. So there's 3 different ways of making this pattern. I find this to be really great if you are making a bunch of patterns, because you can customize it to who needs what. Maybe you want to make this for adults and you know you want to make the mitten, but sometimes those are fiddly. It's nice to have that kind of convertible mitten, if you will. I really enjoy patterns that offer a lot of options, and this one really does. It has a beautiful slipped stitch down the center, which makes it super, just like a little bit more elevated look, if you will, and I highly recommend it. Again, I've made this many, many times. Up next is the penny gloves. This is a pattern by PetiteKnit. I think this is very elegant. I really want to make a pair of these for myself. It only comes in 1 size, which is kind of the downfall of it, but I think you could easily kind of adjust your stitch count to make it smaller or larger, but for now it only comes in one size. The gauge is 25 stitches, and it really is a very simple pattern. You hold, I believe, a fingering weight and a lace weight together, and it is, again, just very simple. Fingerless, long sleeves, which is the part that I really like. I like the longer sleeves, and of course you can do that with a lot of patterns. You can lengthen the arm or the sleeve on it, if you will. Okay, next up is the paddle mitts. These ones I think are adorable. It's by tincanknits, and they have a beautiful, this is made out of DK weight. I love the kind of vintage old sock look, if you will, or sports sock, if you will. It comes in 5 sizes: toddler, child, adult, small, medium, and large. And the gauge is 24 stitches. So these will go by really quickly. Again, it is really fun to make these because you can switch it up. You can customize it for the person. You could do 2 different color stripes. You could add more stripes. You could not do any stripes at all. You could customize the stripes to whatever their favorite color is. I just think it's really fun and a nice way to kind of keep your knitting enjoyable and a little bit switched up as you're kind of making gifts. Next up is the field mittens. This is a pattern by Camilla. And these mittens are really cute. I really like the motif around the wrists. They do only come, I believe, in 1 size. And the gauge on this one is 30 stitches on about a US or a size 3mm needle. So I think that's a US 2. Don't quote me. But it is a fairly fun pattern. It has this such a beautiful, it kind of reminds me of flowers around the cuff, and I think that you could play around with this and kind of make it your own. I do think it would also be really fun in a 2-tone, like do 2-tone color once you get past the kind of motif, and then do another color for the hand. I don't know, just throwing it out there. I think it'd be cute. Okay, next up is the Hiedra mitts. This is by Fibertails. It is a beautiful pattern. This one only comes in 2 sizes, and the gauge is 17 stitches. So this is a beautiful cable knit pattern. Again, I feel like cables add that punch where it looks super impressive and super hard, but it's really one of those things that's not too hard at all to learn. This is a worsted weight pattern, and it just has a beautiful, fun motif again on the front, and I think you could, again, play with color. I think sometimes these cable patterns would look so fun in a 2-tone color, so you can kind of play around with how you want that to look. Again, she just recommends 1 skein of a DK or a worsted weight yarn. It is a very fun and pretty pattern. Okay, next up, the Cowls. And real quickly, before we get started on these patterns, if we're not at Knitting Besties, please make sure to hit that subscribe button below and like this video if you're enjoying these pattern suggestions. Okay, so for Cowls, we have the Nellie neck warmer. This is a pattern by My Favorite Things, and I love this one. It only comes in 1 size. I think, again, you could play around with the stitch count, but it is pretty much an adult knit, I would say, maybe a teen to an adult size. The gauge is 16 stitches, so this is going to just fly off of your needles using a 5mm or a US size 8 needle, so it is going to go by really, really quickly. It takes about 200 grams of yarn, and I think 200 grams of a heavyweight yarn, so I think you're only using like 200 meters of this yarn. Don't 100% quote me on that, but I think you're not using that much. It doesn't use that much yarn, and it really is a very bold pattern. I really like this one. I think it would also look really good marled. So if you wanted to use stash, I would check your stash for a couple of fingering weight skeins and throw it together. I think it will be really fun. Okay, next up is Autumn Stripes. This is a gorgeous pattern by Tracie, Millar, also the Grocery Girls. The gauge is 24 stitches, and I absolutely am in love with this pattern. I love that there is a little bit of lace, a little bit of stripes, a little bit of cables, some texture, some mosaic. There's a lot of stuff going on in this cowl, and that's what makes it fun to knit. Because right when you're like, okay, I've got this pattern down, I'm kind of like wanting something new, you get something new. And you can really play around with your yarn selection and color palette and make this super unique to whoever you are making this gift for. I really, really find it fun. I'm a sucker for stripes, so I love having that little bit of stripe in there. And it's just it's a fun pattern, and I really think you could play around with it and make it perfect for whoever you're knitting for. This does only come in one size, but it is you could play with the proportions if you want to make it a little bit longer or shorter and make the sections accordingly. So you could really customize this one if you want. Next up is the Snuggle is Real. This is a one size pattern. It is a pattern by Maxim Sear, and I thought this was really fun. It has a beautiful textured pattern on the outside with a gorgeous suri lace or a lace weight lining. So it really is a nice and warm cowl. So maybe keep this in mind for your friends who live in very cold climates, or family that lives in cold climates, or just something that people who get cold easily could wear. It's really cute. I love the drawstring detail. I think this makes it super fun. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I love this pattern. It is really, really so cute. I really think that, of course, many of these patterns are unisex. However, it's nice to see this modeled on a man, so it gives you an idea of kind of what that could look like. Next up is the Garter Snake Cowl. This is a pattern by Lavanya Petricella. I hope I said that right. It is a beautiful brioche cowl. I really love this one. It has such a fun I think brioche is fun and playful, and so I love seeing this pattern. It is a 2-color brioche stitch, and the gauge is 21 stitches. I think it would be really fun, especially if you're a fan of brioche. I think this is a super fun knit, and I think with the 2-color brioche, it would make learning the stitch this would be a good way to practice knitting brioche if you're not super familiar. The gauge here is, again, 21 stitches, and I love it. It's so fun. You could pick a bold color and a speckle together, and I think it would just be such a fun pattern to knit. Okay, next up is the Autumn Tides Cowl. This is a pattern by Haley Smedley, also known as Ozetta. This one is such a fun accessory to step into winter. It comes in 3 sizes, and I am sorry, but this is could not be cuter, right? I am absolutely loving this one. Some people are not huge fans of the quote-unquote sticky or neck warmer torso cowl situation happening, but I think this one's really elegant. It kind of, if you're wearing it under, especially a coat or something, will look just like you're wearing a turtleneck sweater. And I think if you make it, especially with a little lace weight thrown in there, it's going to be so cozy and warm for the winter. I can't imagine anyone not wanting to wear this. I really love how the shoulders come out quite a bit. Sometimes I think when they have too narrow of a shoulder area, if you will, it is not my favorite look. But this one has a nice substantial shoulder. It also, because it is knit in a garter stitch, it's going to go by really quickly. Since you have to knit it flat, at least you're knitting on both sides and not really purling too much. I think it's going to go by really quickly. The gauge on this one is 17 stitches. So that is our pattern roundup. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you liked it, please hit the thumbs up or the like button and subscribe if we're not yet knitting besties. I do make knitting videos every 2 weeks, and I can't wait to see you soon. Till then, make some of your magic.